is a bank in Eugene that does something interesting when it hires people. The bank requires its new employees to watch scenes from a movie as part of their training for working at the bank. The message in that film, says the president of the bank, is the message we want our employees to come to work with every day. The idea that our actions make a difference in the community around us. The bank president isn't the only one to be taken with the message and characters of this movie. Every year, especially at this time, millions of people sit down to watch it, to be inspired, to find hope, and to be reminded of how powerful and impactful a life well lived can be on all other lives. The movie that I'm talking about, of course, is Elf. No, it's not Elf, I'm just kidding. Although it is tempting sometimes to think about living by the elves' four main food groups of candy, candy canes, candy corns, and syrup. But that's a story for another time. The movie I'm talking about is It's a Wonderful Life. It's a classic. It's old, and because it's so old and it's in black and white, many people have probably never seen it and might not even want to see it. But it is my favorite. And I want to tell you the story of it if you don't mind, and I'm going to ruin it for you right now. All right? The story is about a man named George Bailey. George Bailey is a dreamer from a small town. He dreams of seeing the world, of building big things, of making a name for himself, and of making a lot of money. But as big of a dreamer as George Bailey is, he has one characteristic that defines him even more. There's one thing about him that outweighs his dreams, and that is his decency, his goodness. George Bailey is a good man. He's a humble person who empathizes with others and cares for them, even more than for himself. So when the time comes to choose between himself and others, he chooses everyone else, every time. There are so many moments in his life when he is so close to finally getting out of town, to finally getting what he thought he always wanted. But at the last minute, a crisis happens, and he can't leave the town behind. He just can't do it. And so he stays, and he helps, and he gives. And as a result, he gets very, very frustrated. He never gets out of town. He never builds things. He never becomes wealthy. In fact, he just barely gets by. Things just don't go his way, or at least the way he wants them to go. Good things happen to people around him, and often because of him, but it seems like everything goes against him. Near the end of the movie, there's a particularly horrible thing that happens to him, an event that is not his fault, but that he will probably take the blame for. And he can't take it anymore. He gives up. He wishes he had never been born. And that's when a miracle happens. He gets his wish. An angel comes and shows him the world without him in it, a world in which he was never born. In just a few minutes with the angel, he sees what his life really was like and what a big difference his little life made. He realizes he would do anything to get his life back again. And when he is returned to real life, he is so overjoyed that all the things that scared him or frustrated him didn't faze him anymore. And the things that seemed so insignificant were now things that he was thankful for. His perspective changes, and he knows that his life is a wonderful gift. But reality is still reality, which means the crisis is still looming over his head. He's back at his house now, holding tight to his family, so glad that he has them, and forgetting his troubles, when something incredible happens. Practically the whole town comes to see him, to give him everything that they can, so that he can be saved, just as he had in some way saved all of them in the past. Person after person comes in, people that he knows and loves. They come running into his house, almost unable to wait to give to this man who they also love very much. They don't ask questions. They just know that their friend needs them. They say things like, "I wouldn't have a roof over my head if it weren't for you, George." and they gladly lay their gifts before him. It's an extraordinary scene, seeing the house full of people and coming together for their friend. But the biggest moment of all is when the last person who enters the room finally comes on the scene. George's brother enters the room, his brother, the shining star of the town, the hero, the one who got to live the life that George always wanted to live. He enters, the crowd gets quiet. Someone hands him a glass, and he says, "Good idea, Ernie. To my big brother George, the richest man in town." And the house erupts with cheers, and George's head falls in humility as he tries to take in all that has happened to him. As you watch that scene, with seemingly the whole town crammed into that house singing and laughing and cheering, you know it's true. He really is the richest man in town. Not only that, but you come to realize that he always had been. He was always the richest man in town. You just didn't see it before because we don't really think of riches that way. But he was rich, not because he had things that he had accumulated or taken for himself. He was rich because of what he had by giving what he could, by helping when he could, and by considering other people just as much as he considered himself, even more than himself. He had the love and the trust and the respect and the friendship of everyone who knew him, and that made his life rich and full and happy. May you be reminded constantly of the messages of It's a Wonderful Life this season, that we are all in this together, that the more we give, somehow the more we have, that he is no failure who has friends, and that riches, the real riches, the ones that in the end really matter, are found in the relationships we have with those who cross our paths. And even though, and even through, all the darkness and frustrations and troubles that we face right now, may we be reminded of what makes our lives wonderful, and that the world wouldn't be the same without you. It wouldn't be the same. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.